Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video, we're going to look at characters, and in particular, we're going to look at one character from each army that you should add to your Warhammer Age of Sigmar army. If you're just starting out your collection, choosing, I guess, the first character model to pick up to lead your force is an interesting option. And in today's video, we're going to go through a character that we think is going to be a great option to pick up as one of your first buys for your Warhammer Age of Sigmar army. Now, if you're just starting a Warhammer Age of Sigmar army, we've done quite a few videos on the channel looking at how to get started in various different ways, from our entire getting started with to our start collecting series that focuses on getting started with the start collecting boxes. And we also did a video not too long ago looking at the first box set you should pick up, so a great unit to pick up as your first unit. Now, if you're definitely looking to get into Age of Sigmar on the cheap, start collecting boxes are a fantastic way, though they are, I guess, at a certain price point, and so you maybe feel that you want to buy a box that's cheap and a character that's cheap. And hopefully in this video we're going to show you cheaper characters. We're not going to show you characters that are named characters or the big, humongous characters. In that, the aim of this video is to be showing you a nice little small cheap-ish character in comparison to the rest of the range that will give you something to add into your force. And so with all of that said, let's get cracking on. We'll be looking at each army in turn, talking about one character we think is great to add at the start of your collection and what exactly they provide for you. And so first up we have the Obesity Chaos. I'm going to recommend the Great Brave Shaman for anyone to pick up. First of all, this is a really cheap model in comparison to a lot of other Ballista Pack heroes. And he's a pretty cool model as well. But big things that he does for you. First of all, he grants additional movement to nearby Bray Herd units that are whole within 12 inch of him at the start of the movement phase, which is really nice, just giving you some extra movement, especially when you've got the ability to really want to get into the charge and lots of bonuses for your charge. Extra movement is always great. He's also a wizard, and so this means you get access to his rather interesting War Scroll spell. There's some really techy and interesting things you can play around with that War Scroll spell, moving your opponent's monster to bring them into shooting and spell range and all of that. And also, Obesity Chaos do have a pretty decent spell lore. While he's not going to be a caster that's going to get many bonuses, having him and having access to some of those spells to try and get off at least is going to be good. He's also a backline hero, so this is great for just having him near your Herdstone, doing all the sacrificing goodness. And next, Blades of Khorne, we look at the Slaughter Priest. So the Slaughter Priest, first of all, gives us some magical defense. In an army that doesn't want to get a lot of unbinds, you're going to get the access to unbind this on this cool Blades of Khorne Priest. He's got some solid War Scroll prayers, none better than Blood Boil, which is a straight up D6 mortal wounds, which is just awesome. And they've got access to a pretty good prayer discipline as well, which gives them access to a prayer that's +1 saves, so some nice stuff in there. If he's near the faction terrain piece, they'll get rerolls to both their prayers and judgments, which is nice. And the terrain piece also has a -1 for enemy spellcasting near it, so this combines really well with your Slaughter Priest's magical defense ability to unbind while near it. So some cool abilities that intertwine with your faction terrain piece here for your Slaughter Priest, and he's just going to give you a ton of good buffing abilities as well. And then for Disciples of Tzeentch, we're going to recommend the Curseling. So first of all, this is just a really awesome looking model, but he does have some cool abilities. So first of all, he can reroll unbinding and dispelling attempts, and Tzeentch is an interesting one because they are really good offensively in Magic. They're not always the greatest defensively. They do get some bonuses here and there, but any additional defensive bonuses are really nice, allowing you to really truly dominate the Magic part of the game. The cool ability on this model as well, when it successfully unbinds a spell, can cast a spell back at your opponent, which is pretty cool. And then it also has a War Scroll spell that allows it to learn enemy spells. So all of this is just really cool. Playing your opponent's own game and casting their own spells against them is always fun. And to top that off, it's a wizard. With all these additional casts and stuff, like successfully being able to cast spells back at your opponent and stuff like that, it's always great to have in a Tzeentch army, as this is how you generate your summoning points, because you cast spells in you and your opponent, and they give you your summoning points. So always helpful to have wizards in a Tzeentch army. For the Hedonites of Slantash, the Contorted Epitome. Now, this model has rerolls for its casting rolls, which is really strong. Slantash do have some good spells, but once again, not the strongest wizards in the game, so getting rerolls to get those higher numbers is really useful. It does have a 2+ mortal wound only ward save as well, which can just keep this model alive, meaning your opponent's going to have to get into combat most of the times to be able to deal with it, or put, I guess, suppressing firepower onto it with non-mortal wounds. However, if they do get into combat with it, it's got a cool ability you can use called Horrible Fascination. At the start of the combat phase, you can roll 1 dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of this model. On a 4+, the model cannot be picked as a target for attacks until this unit has activated in the phase, which is pretty cool. So it's a nice way to sort of protect it. You use your other attacks first, draw out your opponent's attacks, and keep your epitome alive. Overwhelming Acquiescence is its War Scroll spell, and this is a pretty strong spell. Casting value of 7 is successfully cast. You pick D3 enemy units within 24 inch, and you reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks that target those units. So a really strong War Scroll spell as well. Next, for the Maggiekin of Nurgle, we have the Sloppy Bilepiper. Now, this is a great pick if you've got some Nurgle demons in your force. He's got a really cool ability, which is the Jolly Gut Pipes, where he can essentially play one of these following songs to the rest of your force, and they can give out various different benefits. This really does give him a great utility, as he has 3 different effects he can hand out to your Nurgle Demon units, either adding one to their wound rolls, giving them the ability to deal mortal wounds on the hit rolls of 6, or the ability to stop enemies piling in while they're in combat with your Nurgle Demon units. So all of these really cool, strong abilities just allow him to have great versatility across the battlefield. For the Skaven, we've gone with the Arch Warlock. This is a strong wizard that can both cast and dispel 2 spells a turn. This is just great. He's also got a pretty decent armor save for a wizard, and pretty tough and pretty strong for a Skaven hero. So this is just really all just sort of making him a very valuable choice. It also gives you access to the Law of Vault Galvanism, I think I got that right, and the spell More Warp Power, which is just going to allow you to soup up your nearby Clan Scryer units. He'll also allow you to generate Warpstone Sparks, which is part of the Clan Scryer Allegiance abilities if you take him in your army, which you can use to, once again, superpower your Clan Scryer units, which you can then, put more Warp Power on as well, and double superpower to superpower your Skaven units to deal the most damage possible. For Slaves to Darkness, we've gone with the Demon Prince. So, first of all, this is a strong mid-sized hero that's going to hit like a monster, but isn't one. And that may sound like a negative, but it really isn't. There is the best of both worlds in this. So, first of all, it means it doesn't give up any monster points for having it killed during the game. It also means it doesn't get things like monstrous rampages. But the fact that the Demon Prince can sit at 8 wounds, which is a nice way, meaning he's going to be able to get Lookout Sir, he's going to get blocked by trees, and all of that sort of good stuff as well. This is all just going to help him survive. He's on a base 3-up save, which makes him super survivable as well. Offensively, they've just got a lot of damage potential coming out of them. Getting some good buffs on them can be really important, helping them do a lot of damage though. And this is potentially good because it's going to have the bonus +1 to hit if the model ever charges. On top of that, you get cool abilities with some of your weapons, like the Hellforged Sword can do some mortal wounds, and the Immortal Champion ability also allows it to fight at the start of the combat phase. On top of that, you get command abilities based on whichever god you are, and Bloodstick Ground from the Demon Prince of Khorne is particularly super powerful. We move into Death and the Flesh Eater Courts at first. I recommend grabbing an Abhorrent Archregent. This is a really super strong character for the army. First of all, he's just got a decent profile for a character of his size. 7 wounds, 4-up save, 7 attacks, 3s and 3s, run 1, damage 1 is pretty solid for a support, I guess, hero. Now, he can cast and dispel 2 spells per turn, and he's got a really strong War Scroll spell that puts out D3 extra attacks on a unit. This can just be absolutely amazing on the right units. He also self-heals for 3 wounds every single turn. Combine that with the fact that you've got, heroic recovery and all of that, it's just amazing. And he's also got the ability to summon ghouls, which if he's near the Channel Throne, the faction terrain piece for the army, he can do so for free. He can bring 20 ghouls onto the table for a single command point to add to your force. Moving on to Nighthorn and the Dreadblade Harrow. Now this is cool because it's an easy to build kit, which actually makes this kit relatively cheap. But The teleporting ability for this model to teleport each and every turn is really interesting. If this model is also your general, he can use a command point to use the army's unique command ability, which teleports a unit nearby him that's summonable. This can be really great for not only getting your general, but getting a unit around him somewhere on the table that your opponent did not expect them to be. It also gets combat bonuses based on whether the model charged this turn or not, getting +1 damage on the turn it charges and +1 attack on the turns it did not. And it also gains reroll wound rolls of 1 if it's within 9 inch of a Knight of Shrouds as well. So some really cool sort of stacking abilities. It's not too shabby in combat. It's of course Night Haunts, it's got Ethereal and Fly and all of that good stuff. But it's the movement abilities of this model that really make it interesting to have. Moving on to Osceola Bone Reapers, and I'm going to suggest grabbing a Mortison Bone Shepherd. Now, there's not too many reasons why you'd grab this, but the 2 reasons it's got are good. So first of all, it's a wizard. Now, with the updates to Osceola Bone Reapers in the White Dwarf, you, with your first cast, if you use a heroic power, means you can get that spell off to not be unbound. So having a wizard and having him have a spell that is really important to you is really solid as a strategy for Osceola Bone Reapers, as if you cast it and it's your first one and you use the heroic ability for the Mortison unit, you can automatically get that spell off, which is just really nice. Also, like the ability to heal units with its Bone Shaper ability, where it can pick a unit nearby it and can either heal 3 wounds or heal up to 3 wounds worth of models, is really solid. It just does a lot for the army with only a couple of little things on its war scroll, but a really solid hero option. And lastly, for death, the Soul Black Gravelords Necromancer is definitely our pick. So the first things first is, while this hero can be a little bit flimsy, if it's near your summonable units, it can pass off the wounds to nearby summonable units to keep itself alive. It also has some really strong War Scroll spells. Van Hell's Dance Macabre, the ability to fight again later in the combat phase with one of your summonable units, is amazing. This could even be on zombies to do more mortal wounds, on skeleton warriors as they get picked back up after being hit. A really solid ability for a ton of different summonable units across the army. And that's not to mention, it's also got the Invigorating Aura spell, where it can add 1 to the roll for each friendly Soul Black Gravelords hero on the battlefield. If successfully cast, you pick a friendly Soul Black Gravelords summonable unit near it, and you can even heal 3 wounds to that unit, or potentially heal 3 wounds worth of models. So just some really good utility, a great buff piece offensively, and also some good defensive, I guess, keep in the fight style abilities on the model as well. Moving on to destruction, and we start with Gloomspite Gits, and I recommend grabbing a Fungoid Cave Shaman. This is a really cool looking model to begin with. First of all, this is just an absolute ton of fun to paint, but also it can once per game become a double cast wizard, so it is only a 1 cast standard, but can once per game become a dual cast when you really need it to. It does have a standard built-in 4-up ward save, which gives you great protection on top of the fact it's a smaller hero, so it's going to get Lookout Sir and all of that as well. And lastly, you can gain an extra command point for every one of these on the table. So if you had 5 of these, you roll 5 dice at the start of the turn. On a 4+, each one of those dice is on extra command point for you for that battle round. So some really cool abilities here that just makes a great piece to have in your Gloomspite Gits force. Next up in destruction, we have the Ogre Maw tribes, and I recommend picking up a Slaughtermaster. First of all, it's an Ogre hero, so none of them are really that tiny. But he is a pretty cool looking model. Now, he's a wizard and he can potentially heal himself every time he casts a spell, though he could potentially also do a mortal wound to himself every time he casts a spell. So he rolls the dice each time he successfully casts or unbinds a spell, and after the effects of that spell have been resolved on 2+, you heal a wound. However, on a 1, you suffer a wound. His Great Cauldron as well is really where his big bonuses for the army. This can be a little random, but the ability to pull out like +1 to hit from the Great Cauldron is just really useful for Ogre Maw tribes. It saves you on command points, allows you to get reroll charges and get other bonuses on your Ogre units other than having to worry about the +1 to hit. It can be really good for getting like +1 save and being able to get the best of both worlds in a combat, so you're more survivable and more killing. He's also got a decent War Scroll spell. He allows the mortal wound dealing ability for bite attacks of a Ogre unit nearby to him. Next, we have the Auric War Clans, and I'm going to go for the Swamp Cooler Shaman with Potgrot. First of all, this is a fantastic unit for your Cruel Boys army for Auric War Clans, or indeed playing Big War. It gives you access to the Cruel Boys lore, which is a pretty good spell lore. Despite not getting many bonuses to cast, it does have some really good spells within there, like the Black Pit. And the big reason you like Swamp Caller Shamans though is his ability to forego his spellcasting, instead give out poisons or elixirs, in case 9 times out of 10 poisons, to either increase the chance for Verna encrusted weapons to work. This changes them to do mortal wounds on 5s instead of 6s, and or if they give an elixir to get a bonus to save. I haven't had to use the elixir much, but I have had to use it at times, and it's clutch. He's also got a strong War Scroll spell, which is +1 to run and charge for Oryx, and -1 to all enemies. This is just a really good model. All these rules are good. He's got so many different things. While you're nearly always going to be giving out poisons with him, the thing that he's got all these other cool abilities he can do just gives him a ton of versatility on the tabletop. Moving on to the last destruction, Sons of Behemoth. Really, there's no cheap model option. If you'd like to see thoughts on Sons of Behemoth, you can go pick up any of the Mega Gargants. We've got videos talking about that on all the differences between them all, start collecting with Sons of Behemoth and stuff like that. But for me, there's really not much you can say for a cheap hero option for the army. And so, moving on into order, the last of our grand alliances, and we're going to talk Cities of Sigmar first, and the Battle Mage. Now, the Battle Mage kit is amazing to begin with. You get 4 models out of that kit, and you can customize and build those models into absolutely anything you want. Now, what makes the Battle Mage so cool is the Magic of the Realms ability. So, this allows you to pick a realm that your Battle Mage is from, and they get a spell based on which realm. This can range in anything from Chain Lightning, which is mortal wound dealing, and Fireball, much the same, to Mystifying Miasma, if you choose to be from Ulgu, which can subtract 2 from charge rolls of enemy units. Pile of Doom from Shaiish can put minuses to Bravery. You've got Fast Protection to put -1 to hit on one of your own units, giving them protection. Much the same as Shield of Thorns will protect your unit if they are charged or anything like that, doing some mortal wounds. Transmutation of Lead can do some really cool stuff as well, and Wild Form for some +2 to run and charge. There's just so many options on this War Scroll of what you can do. I think it is the excellent hero to start your army with, as it doesn't matter what sort of sub-faction or what sort of part of the army you go down, Battle Mages will always have a usefulness, which is great to know in, I guess, such a wide pool of models as Cities of Sigmar. Next up for order is the Daughters of Kane, and I recommend picking up a Hag Queen. Now, the Hag Queen only comes in the Cauldron of Blood box set. However, there's a way you can pick up a cheaper one. Let us go find the Warhammer Underworld's Morgwraith, the Bloodied box, and use her as your Hag Queen, a much cheaper alternative to the having to pick up a whole Cauldron of Blood box, though the Cauldron of Blood box is a great pick for your army. The Hag Queen will give you access to the Daughters of Kane, really strong prayer discipline. This contains so many good prayers that you're going to want for your army. Having 1 or even 2 or more is always a good option. And they've got the ability to give out rerolls to wound and battle shock immunity, which it can be a little bit random, but gets more and more likely every turn with their Witch Brew ability. It can be just super solid to really buff up those units you have. And also, this can be a pretty solid little killy hero. Their War Scroll prayers like Rune of Kane can make their damage of their weapons D3 instead of 1. All of a sudden turning it into 4 attacks, 3s, rain 1 damage D3 is pretty nice for a little hero. Next up we have the Fire Slayers, and I'm going to recommend the Battlesmith. Now, with the Fire Slayers, a lot of your best characters come inside the Magma Drop kit, but I understand if you're looking to get into a smaller hero first, you're not going to want to pick up that box. You could totally pick up a Runefather with the Fjord Grimnir, the Fire Slayer Warhammer Underworlds box set if you want that. But I do recommend a Battlesmith. You can provide a +1 save roll to units nearby, though they can't retreat if they do so. And if this model ever dies, you try and have him die on an objective, because friendly Fire Slayer units nearby have the choice to never move or charge again, but they do get to reroll hit and wound rolls. If your opponent really has to take you off the objective and lacks mortal wound ranged output to do so, or even ranged output to do so, this could be a great play for your army to really just hold an objective and cement your position on it, as the Fire Slayers protect the fallen banner bearer. On to our Deep Sea Elves, the Idoneth Deepkin, and I recommend the Ishiran Soulscryer. First of all, it's a priest. Now, this gives you access to the prayers. At the moment, the universal prayers. There may be a whole prayer lore coming in a new battle tome, who knows? And also, at current, gives you access to the Idoneth rituals and getting some benefits for them. But the big thing this model does is it can allow you to outflank units. When this model is deployed, you can pick up to 2 other units to outflank alongside this model, and they can come on the board edge of your choice, 9 inch away from enemy units. In addition, it'll also give a bonus to charges for units nearby, so this just combines really well with its outflanking abilities. Next, for the Kharadron Overlords, we have the Etheric Navigator. So first of all, this model is going to provide you with some magical defense. It can unbind and dispel and spells and endless spells as if it were a friendly wizard, which is really nice. This just gives you a ton of cool abilities here to hopefully stop some of that stuff getting towards your lines. And it can also hamper your opponent's movement. If your opponent's unit has fly, at the top of your turn in your hero phase, you can pick one enemy unit with 36 inch of this model and that has fly, and you roll a dice. On a 1 or 2, nothing happens. On a 3 to 5, you halve the move characteristic, and on a 6, halve the move characteristic of that unit, and the unit suffers D3 mortals as well. On top of this, you've got the Read the Winds ability, which allows you to reroll run and charge rolls for friendly Skyverse units that are within line of sight of this model. All in all, it's just some good, solid, all-round abilities that are going to really help your Kharadron Overlords out. On to the Luminesce Realm Lords, and I recommend Scenari Catalar. So first of all, this is a wizard, and it's got a decent War Scroll spell, Darkness of the Soul. It has a casting value of 7, you pick one enemy unit within 18 inch of the caster invisible to them until your next hero phase. You roll 2d6 each time that unit wants to make a move, run, retreat, charge, shoot, or fight, and make that roll before the action is carried out, and if the roll is greater than the unit's bravery characteristic, it cannot perform that action in the phase. So some really cool abilities on that Darkness of the Soul spell. Emotional Transference, though, is where it's at. At the start of the Battle Shock phase, you can pick a friendly Luminesce Realm Lord unit, hold within 18 inch of this model, and roll a dice. On a 2+, do not take Battle Shock tests for that unit. In addition, if any enemy models from that unit were slain during that turn, you can pick one enemy unit within 18 inch of this model, and that unit has to take a Battle Shock test in that place. And if you do so, you add the number of models from the friendly unit that was slain to the modified Battle Shock roll for the enemy unit, essentially flipping a Battle Shock test onto your opponent. Next up for the Seraphon, we have the Skink Star Priest. So first of all, the ability to generate extra command points on a 5+ each turn is just super solid. But where this model comes into its own is the Serpent Staff ability that allows it to grant mortal wound dealing capabilities to nearby units. This can work great on units with large volumes of shots. Things like your Skinks work really well with this model right nearby them and giving them the Serpent Staff benefits. On top of that, the model is also a wizard and has a pretty good War Scroll spell that's just a flat minus to hit. Is a really nice, solid option for your Seraphon and pretty cheap to boot. And for the Stormcast Eternals, we've gone with the Lord Imperatant. For me, this is just one of the best heroes in the entire Stormcast Eternals battle tome. He's a solidable, survivable foot hero with 7 wounds and a 3-up save. He's really going to be sticking around for quite a bit and really hard to take out with, I guess, splash damage. Your opponent's going to have to actually put work into him. But his Distinguished Leader ability is where it's really at for me. Free command point ability use each and every turn is just absolutely amazing. The amount of times this just comes up and going, well, the first command point I'm using this turn, I don't care about using because it's a free one, is just vital. He also allows Thunderstrike units to deploy closer to your enemies when arriving from the heavens, being 7 inch away rather than 9 inch away, as is the standard throughout the game. So this is really great, putting him in tandem with, say, something like Annihilators that have a rerollable charge built in. You can spend 0 command points to be 7 inch away with a rerollable charge. It's pretty solid. And lastly, the Sylvaneth, and I'm going to recommend grabbing a Warsong Revenant. While this may be a little bit more expensive than some of the other heroes models available to Sylvaneth, I think this is a great place to start. It is a model that just gives you so much on the tabletop. So first of all, it can cast 2 spells a turn and unbind 1 in a turn, and it also gives you a bonus to Bravery for nearby friendly units and a negative modifier for nearby enemy units. The model also has a built-in 4+ ward save, which combined with its base sort of 7 wounds is going to make it pretty survivable. And it's also got a +1 to cast, dispel, and unbind if it's near any of your awakened wildwoods that you're putting down with your army. It also has a good area of effect spell, which is going to do a bunch of mortal wounds to nearby enemy models, and this can work really well when combined with something like an Umbral Spell Portal to shoot this out into your opponent's lines and just do a ton of mortal wound area of effect damage. A really solid model to have in your Sylvaneth army. Well, that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment below and let us know what you enjoyed about the video. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel and turn those bell notifications on so you don't miss a beat when we upload new stuff to the channel. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel in another way, you can do so either by helping support the channel on Patreon or YouTube members. This allows us to continue to make new content for the channel, exploring other game systems outside of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, like we have started to with things like Elder Scrolls: A Call to Arms and Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings and Warhammer 40,000, and it helps us just continue to make more Age of Sigmar content as well. Thank you to, though, everyone who has helped support, and we'd like to give them all a shout out to our patrons. First of all, Christian Weir, James Soren, Greenskins Gaming, AJC, Kenny Lowe, Outer and Shop First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Anton Nilsson, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater, and Samuel. And to our YouTube members as well, Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Chris Wallace, Ronya, Vinny Locklorick, The Johnny 84, David Ellsworth, Revenar, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Sean Scott, and Diplomat. And a special thank you, of course, to, first of all, Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork for the channel you see here, and to Xmorphic, who does all the awesome background work on our Discord server, keeping that nice and running properly for us all. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Once again, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against Grey. Ciao for now.